evolves to the next level. Having said that, what we are discussing today and what we have been discussing over the live streams that we have started with the startup theme is a key initiative that is really empowering Bharat as a nation to succeed to the next level. And why only India or Bharat as we know it? It is like actually empowering every kind of idea in every part of the world, whether you talk of UK, Europe, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, or you talk of the US or Canada. Every part of the world, it is just human to think of a new way of doing the good old things or a new way of doing a brand new thing that hasn't been done before but addresses a certain pain point. And that is what it really takes to start something new. However, we call something a startup. The funky word startup does bring in the business angle also to it, meaning we make some revenue, some currency, some value and some currency out of it, which helps us keep the lights alive and create more and more wonderful products or services that we have been providing to our customers. What makes a business? We talked about mapping the ecosystem right. We also spoke about how not only is it important to map the ecosystem, but to get your business model right and to have a minimum viable product or a minimum viable service. But now we are diving deeper into understanding what does it take to actually get your business model right. Like you might have built it out on a plan on a piece of paper, but how do you test it out if it is actually working for you? And how do you get that MVP working, not working? You need people. You definitely need human beings to run your business. And the best of the human beings make the best of the business. This is not to say that the worst of the human beings make the worst of the business. No. When I say best of the human beings, best with respect to a particular skill, with respect to a particular scenario, with respect to a certain approach required. For instance, if I am actually creating a show like Roadies, then Raghu is relevant for me, or Ranvijay is relevant for me. However, if I am running a business which is more like a textile industry business, then maybe Ambani is relevant for me who thinks of polyester. Both are risks, both are different kinds of risks. But put Ambani in roadies or put Ranvijay in a textile industry, you'll be doing something wrong. That is exactly what I've been trying to address through Unplug the Genius, where we say that by making a fish climb the tree, you'll make it feel like a fool, isn't it? So that is what we are going to address as to people make your business. That's subtopic of discussion for today. That people make our business and what does it take to get the right people at the right place at the right time. So are you ready for this journey with me where we try and understand together what does it take to make people, to let people make your business and make it well. So that's the theme that we are discussing today at Unplug the Genius. So you must have seen this logo again and again, and I bring it to you again and again. We try to bring up newer ideas and very simplistic ideas. We try to keep it without jargons, and I genuinely try and share some of my real life experiences so that they create value for you. And that's for how we are going to progress today as well. So moving on to people make your business. You know what? Business isn't taught early enough. We are taught mathematics, we are taught geography, we are taught science, physics, chemistry, maths, how the nucleus works. All this is good. But we are not taught often as to what takes income tax as a business. And I remember I learned it when I was 14 or 15 for my final ICSE exam. And that too was something special. Everyone was not learning about income tax, dividends, shares. The topics were more like geometry. The topics were more like chemistry and etc. etc. But really learning the tenets of business when we are young, really learning that how do you think through an idea? How do you help crystallize an idea into something that's doable in real world? And how do you test it out if it's working? If it's not working, it's okay. We'll test out something else. How do you evolve it further? If we are taught early enough, it would help in so many different ways. I'm bringing this up because, in case you know someone who's looking for help to understand or teach business as early as 10 years old, I'm game. Please do let me know. But having said that, that is why we are running through all these details now. And it is also the reason I'm bringing this up is that business isn't taught early enough is also because we need to really dumb it down in our mind. If we start learning business as we learn in the business schools, I've myself studied from ISB. So if we start thinking of it that, oh, this is what we learned in business school in a straight-jacketed format, we will most probably miss out the simple nuances which are actually covered in everyday truth. So, from that perspective, a good business is as simple as you can teach it to a kid, maybe in standard fourth or fifth max, maybe even a younger kid today, given that we humans are also evolving. But that's what I'm trying to make a point here. And the very point that we are talking, that we have frameworks in place, we've already seen if the idea is something that will pick up in a given environment and has incentives from the government and the local authorities and an intent or maturity of the ecosystem to accept and sustain it. Having said that, how you implement the plan is super, super, super important. A system is as good as the people in it. A business that runs the system, or a system that runs the business, is also as good as the people in it. So it's so important that you ensure that you hire the right people at the right place at the right time. Now, that brings me to the point, how do you hire the right people? I mean, most of the startups would go for the MITs, IITs, Harvards of the world, or maybe if you're in India, maybe ISB, IIM. Nothing wrong with that. But it is simply a stamp. It may not necessarily generalize the skills that the person brings to the table and how they are going to use those skills to address what is required, what is required by your business. How do you ensure that the person's intent is right, that their stage of development in their career, in their life, aligns with your stage of development? How do you ensure that? That is much more critical than any expertise, any pedigree, and any other alignment per se. Steve Jobs says that he could build the Mac OS well because he had people from diverse streams coming together. Like there were historians, there were literary people. He himself brought in Helvetica as a font to the Mac OS because he had attended some calligraphy classes while bunking his main class and actually going through the corridors of Stanford, where he was getting his education. So, what is it that this person is striving for? Again, unfortunately, a subject that's still more art than science, where knowing someone's intent, knowing what someone is after, is something that we learn to gauge over a period of time. Having said that, the nearest stream that comes to it, of course, other than coaching and personality develop, like personal development, is of course HR, and it is a much ignored wing in startups. But having the right human resource person from day one can set the culture of the organization that you're building in such a way that it's more cohesive. Everyone feels included into the work that they are doing, and the hiring is done right, which brings us to a third point. From day one, whether you're getting your co founder on board or you're getting an investor on board, investor, as Vinod Khosla would tell you, is a m- employee whom you can't fire. So you can consider them in this group. But everyone you get on board should align with whatever are the ethos of the company. But have you stopped by to define the ethos? If that is not your core skill, if you're more of a techie or a market driven person, have you hired someone who can do it for you? Hiring right and including and retaining your initial employees who most probably, not always, not necessarily, but most probably will become senior leaders in your organization. Have you identified them right? Do they align, when we say right, again, do they align with your viewpoint, your way of working, your energies, and what you say is implicitly more understandable to them, yet they bring their variety? Do you have that balance right? And that's where a HR comes really handy. Now, when we talk of hiring, right, it's so easy for me. Many of you must be saying it's so easy for you to say this just over the board. But what does it really mean? So, here are some key aspects of hiring that matter today. HR team. When I say team, it can be a team of zero to maybe three people as a startup. Till you're not growing beyond 300, you may want to restrict to three people maximum. But you might sometimes need just one person, and maybe that one person is also doing half of an HR job and half of some other job. But someone who can act more out of empathy. If it is you, it is you. You can be the CEO, the founder, and the chief people officer, but categorically having that segment both in your mind and on your papers that someone is looking into the human resources, or maybe the human potential rather than resources, and having a vision of building a culture from day zero, even if it is two employees that you're starting with, you yourself and just one more person. Even then, there should be certain vision that you have for your culture as to, for instance, um, say the Tatas always had the culture of giving back to the society. And being one of the, Ratan Tata always had this, and I think it existed from JRD Tata's time also. I've been a Tata employee earlier, um, and a very proud one at that. So the Tatas would say that they are an employee friendly organization. They value what an employee brings on board. It is very important to define that and to get that right, not because it is a trend, but it is what you want to stand for. Amazon stands for its brutal candor and for the efficiency that it brings. And there are 16 leadership principles that anyone who goes into Amazon today needs to go through. Now, that wasn't built now when the company grew bigger. Of course, it must have evolved with time, but these 16 principles were somewhere present in some form within the organization all through from day zero or day one of Jeff Bezos starting Amazon way back in 1990s. That is what it takes. In today's hiring, a couple of more factors come in. AI is just sweeping across across all domains, across all sectors, and it's a great wave to have because we have had AI since 1952. It's only now that we are starting to adopt it. If not now, when? So it's great that it's happening, but at the same time, that means that just as you needed English speaking people in IT earlier, you will need AI powered hiring, not only in checking the ATS or checking the application tracking system, but in hiring people who have AI as one of their skills, no matter which domain they are specializing in. This should be a generalist skill, just as communication is a generalist skill. A minimal use of AI tools to 10x, 20x one's efficiency at work is a bare minimum you would want to expect from your employees. Say, for instance, someone is in marketing, how are they going to use ChatGPT, Pictory, and maybe Gemini to bring together things and prepare a report for you, prepare a certain kind of carousel, and also prepare maybe a note that goes out on the social media? Can they do that? Can they tag the Google Analytics right so that you get the right information on how the tracking is going on the website? What are the skills? What are the skills that they are bringing? And there is something called quiet hiring. Quiet hiring is like you might have, say, 10 people in your organization today, and you know individually their aspirations, what they have called out to you. Say, someone has said that they want to be product manager, but you see that they have that instinct of being a salesperson. They don't need to sell, they're just there. What they believe in is something that anyway picks up because they're that trustworthy. and they're able to call out the right elements at the right time. It's often believed that salespeople are more extroverted and they know how to blabber. Not necessarily. They know how to talk. And to talk right information at the right time is itself a skill. Maybe someone who aspires to be product manager actually has this quality, and you've seen them being in some of the client facing discussions where you see that this person is gaining momentum here and can contribute much more as a salesperson than as a product manager. What would you do? You might want to quietly, that's quiet hiring, you might want to quietly fill up your sales roles which come up in the future by seeing if this person is ready for a sideway vertical rise in their career. Those are some turning points that many people say that their mentors, their leaders actually help them identify skills that they didn't know within themselves. For instance, born in India, and it is expected, at least when I was a kid, there was a soft expectation that if you're a girl, you may not be that logical, but you must be much more emotional. I might get some trolls for this, but this is a fact. I turned out to be a very logical lady. And at the same time, I knew that I loved coding, but I never thought that I'll build a career out of it. But it was some of my initial managers who saw certain skills in me which I didn't see myself, that they moved me around in the right way, that I learned and I fell in love and built an entire career of an enterprise architect. Before I again pivoted to sales and took another turn, all this had happened before I came into business coaching. But these transitions are super important. These quiet hirings within the organization are much more effective than just going outside and hiring because, oh, I have people with XYZ skill and I need ABC skills. I don't have people in my pool with ABC skill. Let me go out. No, just look for XYZ first. If they are exhibiting this as a secondary skill, you might want to tap into them. You might want to incentivize them to see if this works better. People say something that they aspire for, but the great leaders see what they are truly aspiring for and know that there are infinite paths of reaching the same goal. Are you that leader to them? Moving on, generalists more than specialists. People are afraid that they'll lose their jobs to AI, but I'll quote something that I've heard a couple of leaders around the world tell. 80% of of every job will be done with 80% efficiency and accuracy by AI by 2030, which means it is not AI that will take away our job. It's people who know how to leverage AI who will take away these jobs, or people who do not know how to leverage AI. We will have people specializing in 3 to 4 domains at least instead of only one domain, maybe engineering or say marketing. Now you'll have an engineer who is also a marketeer and is also a salesperson, or a DevOps engineer who's also into economics and manages the finance of the company. Those are the kind of roles that we are going to see, like DevSecOps. If you come from technical background, you know that there used to be traditionally development, operations. Uh, sorry, I missed the sec part, but okay, development and then deployment, and after that comes the operations where you maintain it. Then came DevOps, where everything got combined into development, even in analyzing the security, deployment, and then running the operations. So, what are the different models that are evolving? Ensure that you're generalist across many, or you hire generalists across many. You, as a founder, will be more, but you will have one domain where you're building quite of depth in it. And there's like jack of all trade and master of some. Those are the ones you'll need more in the future. But definitely a master of using AI tools, not necessarily building them, not necessarily building foundational models, but using them. Moving on, global remote squads. Um, I don't know if you have seen this, but there is a term called nomad visa, digital nomad visa that has come up, and it is something that allows you to continue holding the citizenship and the right to work in your home country while living for longer periods of time in some other country. For instance, as a digital nomad, I can stay in Europe, yet work for a company in India, Europe, UK, US, wherever. I'll get paid in my currency. This is happening more because we are developing a worldwide gig economy. Do you want to tap into this population that works remotely with VPNs, with different security measures in place? And because you're a startup, you need to build quick and dirty and maybe quick and cheerful also sometimes. Instead of necessarily building everything together that is worth being hacked by a hacker. A hacker would rather want to hack a multi-billion dollar company than your three people startup or say 15 people startup. Are you okay if you find the right talent, a brilliant talent from some part of the world who adds to the global culture of your organization rather than having the same people from the same place joining you for a session? That is where you build a global team. We are at the right time to build these global teams worldwide. Hire by shift. Again, a contractual hiring that maybe morning part of your day when you're doing your product development, you have someone working from India. Then afternoon part of the day or the covering 24 hours, the second shift gets covered somewhere in UK, Europe, and the third shift gets covered by someone who's placed in US or maybe Mexico or Argentina. Can you do this? And maybe next day someone starts in Japan. So hiring by shift from different parts of the world, or this is my way of hiring by shift because I do think of a global organization from day zero. It depends. You may or may not, depending on the nature of your business, on the domain that you work in, and what it permits and what it doesn't. For instance, the way it's going, many defense companies will want to restrict their defense research, defense knowledge, and the building for it to their localized areas. But they will definitely have vendors from all around the world. So it depends on where you are and what works for you. What are the government incentives? As I said, there are digital nomad visa. These are government incentives for people to travel around without needing to change their passport or needing to settle in a given place. But you literally stay for 6 months and then go out for a couple of days and come back and you're continuing in the same country if you're earning above a certain amount and if you have a visa to that place. So these are some ways that our globe is shifting. Are you ready to tap into these turns and economic slowdown and impact, which means that there'll be more resource available to you, more people available for hiring at much reasonable or negotiable cost? Will you do the right thing to them to join your organization? And will you give them the right scope of development in a new dimension? Because when these layoffs happen, many people believe that they were not worth the job. Not really, to everyone out there, because right now also it's happening. It's not anything about your worth. It is about a global wave that's going on, which is wiping away some. Yes, you were in the corner cases, but big deal. You must be great at something else. That's why you were the first ones to come down from there. Figure out your greatness and tap into it. It will pay off. No doubts about it. Moving on. Industry talent swaps. For instance, I have worked in media industry. I have worked in the technology industry. I have been a part of AI journey. I have been a part of an NGO working in the impact sector, and I have been a coach also. Not the best example, but say you are building an m-commerce or AI enabled commerce site. Would you want to hire someone from e-commerce? Now say you're doing something that's fintech domain. Would you be okay hiring someone from insurance or BFSI because they bring in certain skill sets, certain ways of looking at things where it's okay for you? Say for example, you need to write off certain loans in your fintech, small value loans, but will I actually do the right work for you? Those are things to think of. So, are there talents in other industries that fit in into what you want to bring, or can you bring in a talent and not only swap the industries and make them more relevant and more generalist than specialists. Say you today you've already hired 15 people. You don't want to do away with them and hire generalists. See how you can cross skill them to make them generalists. And at the same time, ensure that one industry's best practices pour in into another industry best practices and so on and so forth. For instance, in technology industry, we had the word agile picking up soon, and there was storyboarding done, but filmmaking always had storyboarding. The new ways of filmmaking always included having storyboarding and getting scenes and shots done in a certain group and then rejigging them into the puzzle of the storyboard to tell the story together. We brought it into IT later. So it was a best practice that was in a different context adopted into IT. Can you see some of these? And can you get the people to do that so that they do their pioneering work and they stick on to you? And you have the privilege of being a startup founder, which means that there are lesser policies governing you and your genius is already unplugged. And you make the magic happen, not only through you, but through the people whom you hire. They are your real magic. Human edge is rising. Of course, it's rising. Talk to a digital native versus talk to my past version at their age. They're definitely smarter than me. So, with this rising edge of human beings, how are you going to be a leader to them? And who are the ones you are a leader to? Knowing those aspects that you can appreciate and you can do well with. Do you like someone who's confrontational? Nothing right or wrong about it. But there'll be people who'll challenge you. Are you okay with that? Because they also bring in a lot of energy. Once you're able to convince them and gain their trust, they'll challenge others for you. But are you ready for that? Recruiters reimagined, of course, the like every other industry, recruitment itself is going through a change. The way we look at roles today is being redefined. We spoke about this softly a little while ago that you might have an engineer who's also looking into finance and is managing the economic reports that are generated in the company. Those are the kinds of talents that we are looking for. Or you might have a museum artist who knows how to use AI to enhance the storytelling of the different hieroglyphs that are there in a given museum. Those are the skills that we are looking for. Earlier, all these used to be compartmentalized. The way we define our boundaries are fast changing and bringing us to a lovely new world. I'm too excited about it. It's about, are you excited? And are you ready to tap into it? Most businesses fail due to people mismatches. Now, this comes to the point where you have hired the right people, but are you grouping them up in the right way? Are you paying attention? When I say you and your HR, your HR head, whoever you have it, no matter if you have three people in the organization, you, the HR head, and one more higher. But from day one, are you paying attention to the synergies that you are developing with each of the teams, with the internal synergies that the teams are developing? And are there some interactions happening which are either detrimental for the organization in longer run or say there are certain unhealthy interactions happening because there are a couple of people who have different views of how they approach things. If they're put into different teams, these two people who seem to not gel well together, say a supervisor and employee, will actually both flourish. And do you have those people who derail your company? They're great at what they do, but they don't want to do. They used to want to do, no longer. How do you handle them? Because they are your main detrackers. They already feel that they have the privilege or the entitlement, rather, of being rewarded for the amount of work that they have done for you as a startup founder. And you're dealing with it, knowingly, unknowingly, knowingly in the sense you're not necessarily very fond of them, but you're dealing with it. Unknowingly, when you are also very fond of them and you don't know that you've got bias towards them versus someone else who's quietly working, getting the work done, sometimes avoiding the problem, sometimes coming head on to it, but The intent is to get the work right, to someone who was maybe just doing the work and going away, doesn't have much attachment. Today is working with you because the compensation is good, it feels good, but may or may not have developed a deeper bond. Who amongst these are the ones you would retain in your team and why? Someone who truly believes in your vision, or someone who always is a challenge because you love to take challenges, or someone who's a detracker and even tells you lies in the meetings, makes big promises but delivers very low, makes very small promises, under promises, is too much on the guard, and always has done more work so that next time you give the work, the previously done work comes through. These are practical scenarios that I've seen happening again and again and again, and these can make or break things. So you might want to get your vision right. Do you appreciate as an organization, not only you as a human being, honesty, sincerity, smart work, or hard work? Are you okay with white lies or not really? Are you an employee friendly organization or an efficiency driven organization, or both? Yeah, in the world of AI, both are possible. What is the standard that you are holding your employees up to? How are you living up to that standard? And what are the parameters of those, what you call standard? Really important things to dive into, because once even you build a team of 5 people, there are different permutation combinations that are going to play through. How do you hire? What role do you give them? Part time, full time, contractual? Your vision for them and their vision for themselves. How sure are they of their vision? How sure are they of your vision? And do you have an HR? That's what we have covered till now. And of course, you might want to have a coach like me. We come handy when you have those employees who were interested yesterday but are disgruntled right now. And you, as a founder, are not really able to make out what has really gone wrong. Why isn't the organization ethos standing up? But then you need to know your ethos to know whether it's standing up or not. Always, always remember that you're building a business, not a startup. I don't have anything other like odd for the word startup other than this, that people believe every new idea is a startup. Not really. It needs to make business sense. It's important to think of it as a new business than to think of it as the jargon fancy word that we use as startup. People, purpose, persistence, because you will face issues because you're trying to do something new. You'll be definitely disturbing something that's existing. But can you build that critical mass that what you're believing actually gets traction? Can you hire the right people that what you are believing is what they believe in and that becomes the reality? You have to have a cohesive team. Tomorrow, if you have someone coming back to this point, say you have someone who is insincere at work, you know it, but this person has been in your organization since the last 3 years. You know there are other team members who say that, ma'am, sir, this person has promised you this, but is not delivering. They're supposed to help me with information. They're not helping me. How can I get my work done? What do you do in that situation? Build your critical mass. Define the exact opposite of or exactly complementary person and their attributes, which will bring in the right kind of rigor and the right kind of culture that you want, and don't make one single hire. It's 1:1. Identify all the roadblocks as humans in your ecosystem, and at least for each of them there should be one strong person you bring, and bring them at the same time and make this critical mass higher. That's one way of ensuring that you cure yourself as an organization, as a newly building business, of the effects of the employees who are no longer serving the purpose of being a part of the organization but have their own agenda and their own entitlement. Getting this right, that you're building a business, not a startup, is super important here. So that is what I have for you today. I hope it was helpful. And I'm sorry again for starting the live stream late today. It is just one time thing, I assure you that. And we will stay connected and we will be talking more. But for now, I would like to tell you a bye. And next time, next week, we talk about people who make your business again, but this time, customers. You have identified their segment. Have you identified it right? What needs to change there? What can you do to better that? How do you not overcome it or over expect and make your business run and thrive? I'll see you on the other side. Bye.